What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mind, Muscle, and Mission podcast on the NFM Podcast Network. My name is Ben, your co-host. This other guy with a nice curly lock of hair is Christian. What's going on, Christian?
Hello, how's the day going?
It's going well, man. It's the time for podcasts, and I'm super excited to welcome Denny on this. Denny and I have known each other for almost a year now, and I had the opportunity to be the Standard podcast. It was just a great conversation, and we're just honored to have Denny on to discuss
What's up,
some
man?
great
Nice to
things. So
be
what's up,
here.
Denny? How's
Good to
everything
meet you,
going?
Christian. And yeah, man, this is exciting. Yeah, this is exciting. Cool to be here.
It's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it is. It is. Now,
Yeah, I'm
Denny, you're up in near Boston,
It's
right?
Boston, up here in Massachusetts.
Nice, nice. And so I know there's a couple things that I want to highlight with you, and we'll get to that. Some big news going on in your life and the endeavors that you're pursuing. But let's take a little bit further a step back and just talk to me about, or talk to us about what drove you to sign on that line to become,
Yeah, so
an active duty
just put
soldier.
some perspective for your users. I spent, or your listeners rather, I spent 7 years in the Army National Guard up here in Mass. I signed up in 2006 between recruiting and deploying overseas and then coming home and being on medical. I spent probably 5 years of my 7 years on some type of active duty orders for the Guard. Um, so yeah, no, I did 7 years there. And basically what happened was I did 3 years of college. I went to Central Connecticut and was there for 3 years. Couldn't afford to go back for my fourth year. So I decided I was going to take a year off work and then I'd go back and finish my degree after a year off. And during that year, I was working the paint counter at Home Depot and in walked a recruiter and we started talking and he was getting some paint mix that I was doing for him and he started flashing all these financial benefits of joining the military. And at the time I had always had respect for the military and thought about it, but never really considered it, seriously. But I got to thinking, and he flashed out, $20,000 signing bonus, and we'll pay off $20,000 of your existing student loans, and then we'll pay for you to finish your degree as well. So all of these things, and I was just like, yeah, where do I sign? Because $20,000 signing bonus at the time might as well have been $1 million for me. Felt So yeah, I signed up and I left for basic training and infantry school in August of 2006. And yeah, that's that's kind of why I signed up. And then, my biggest regret is I didn't do any homework. I did no due diligence. I just, I heard the numbers, I liked the numbers and was like, yeah, where do I sign? As opposed to, really looking into it and seeing what, I could do with, joining the military and get out of it. Because there's zero doubt in my mind that if I just did a little more homework, I probably would have done something more suited to what you did. Uh, because as soon as I got to
Yeah.
infantry school and graduated that and eventually landed at my unit and eventually deployed and all these things, it was like, shit, I could have done something way harder and just really pushed myself harder to see what I was capable of. And, but you don't live with regrets. It just is what it is. Just didn't do the homework, but yeah, no regrets, man. I enjoyed my time serving and it was fun.
Awesome. You know that recruiter who just saw you
Yeah,
and he was like, "Yep, that's the one right there."
I
He's like,
I
"I need to fill
saw,
this
I
contract.
joke all the
That's the
time
dude.
that, he
That's
saw
my
an
guy."
easy target and it was just like, yep, I got this guy. But this is also a time where, recruiting was just going through the roof, especially in the Guard. They had insane
Oh, for
enlistment
sure.
bonuses, referral bonuses. I know one kid that I met in basic training who they were given $5,000 referral bonuses for each soldier in the National Guard that you referred in, and they actually signed up and graduated basic training. And there was one kid who he knew somebody in Texas who made like $70,000 just on referrals that year. Uh, so it was crazy. It was just a crazy time for the military. And then, later on that, a year later after I enlisted in 2007, right around the same exact time, almost a year to the date, there was the surge in Afghanistan. And so it made you like, okay, well, that's why there was such a surge in recruiting as well, because they were sending an extra however many thousands of troops over to Afghanistan, so they needed bodies, obviously. But yeah, I was able to put two and two together there.
No, we just need to watch out because they're getting all those the actually good recruiting ads back out nowadays.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh well, here we go. Let's get ready
Yeah.
for this
Yeah,
next
you know
one.
something's
So when we start
happening.
seeing those bonuses again, it's
When
like,
they're trying
okay,
to fill
Time of
battalions
uncertainty
and
right now.
even
Yeah.
state and local departments and things like that, like something's happening. Yeah.
it's going to be a lobster and steak night for the boys.
That's good. Yeah, man. I think that's awesome. And you
Yeah, so I
served.
did.
You
I
did
did.
a trip to
In
Afghanistan,
2010,
right?
I went to Afghanistan. I was there till from July 2010 to July 2011. I was at that time I was an infantry team leader, and we were part of a provincial reconstruction team. And just for your viewers, provincial reconstruction team is basically a team of civil affairs experts, agricultural experts, educational experts, medical experts, and basically we have members from all different branches of the military, from Army to Navy to Air Force, and that team essentially goes into the villages within a province to assess their needs. So they would check for all of those things, like I mentioned, for medical to agriculture, and just kind of see, where their needs, what their needs were, and how we could meet those. And our job as infantry guys was to pull security for them. So we would map out, routes of travel. We'd have, imagery of every village we were going to, and, where and how we were going to set up perimeters, and, basically secure their infill, secure their exfil. And that was our job, to just be security for that team. And yeah, so I did that job for a year, and it was pretty cool. My commander and senior enlisted of that deployment of that provincial reconstruction team were both SEALs. Really cool guys. We had guys
Okay,
from
nice.
SEAL Team 8 coming out with us all the time. There was a team of those guys there. So we were going out. We were the only provincial reconstruction team in country that I knew of that was going out for 3-4 days at a time. And we were sleeping with the Afghan National Police, Army, staying at the district centers and things like that. So got to do some pretty cool stuff for a guy who was in the Guard.
Yeah, I think the civil affairs units, they've always, from my experience working with them, that they always got to go to these pretty cool places and push the boundaries a little bit further than what a typical, infantry unit commander would authorize. So that's awesome. I like the experience and the year deployments, man. That's tough. Like I was fortunate not to do a year deployment, and I can only imagine, you know, the the
Mm.
monotony of constantly doing the same thing. But also for you, it probably went by a little bit quicker just because you were able to be more active throughout the duration of your deployment. Um, you wrote something, and we talked a little bit about it on my podcast with you, is your pain and struggle is not unique, but how you react is. And man, like I keep reading that and I keep thinking how powerful that statement is
Yeah.
like trauma is trauma, and it's so only important to us because we've experienced it, right? But it's always our choice of how do we react, and having that choice is very powerful. It builds you that confidence in being able to react and either make mistakes and learn from it, or make the right one. So like go through a little bit of, because I know you've experienced a lot of trauma, some difficult times early on in your childhood, and how did that build, or what was that? How did that affect you while you were in,
Yeah, I mean,
during your duration
it's
of the
one of those
service?
things, like, you're going through, your military training, and, the process during different schools, different whatever, that, you're being broken down for a reason, right? And you're going through these hard things for a reason. It's designed to make you stronger and, more effective as a leader, all these different things. And, you're going through those, and you're just like, somebody with childhood trauma like I have is just thinking, whatever, like, I've been through this as a kid. Like, I felt like I was nothing before. So like the military is not going to give me something that I can't handle, like physically, mentally, like it's just not going to happen. So that's kind of how I was able to use that trauma to kind of channel myself into, just a different mindset, going through different, things throughout the military. Like I said, whether it was a school, whether it was being deployed. But going back to that quote, it's, when you're going through certain things like myself, right? I grew up in and out of foster care. My biological mother passed away from AIDS when I was a kid. I've never met my father. I don't know who he is, where he is, if he's alive, if he's dead. I used to have, an uncle that was physically abusive to me until I finally fought back and just beat the shit out of him. But yeah, when you're going through those things, you feel like you're on an island by yourself, right? And you feel like you have every excuse to feel sorry for yourself. You have every excuse to maybe, take a wrong turn or go in the wrong direction. But it really is that next step that you take that is a differentiating factor, because, when you have those types of things happen to you, your excuses become pre-programmed. You have those excuses. And, if I had grown up and just got into, the wrong crowd or drugs or crime or whatever it is, people would have been like, well, no shit. Of course, that's how he ended up. Look what he had to deal with as a kid. Right. And so, you're not special because of your pain, whether it's, your childhood pain or PTSD from combat or, any of those things. There's thousands of guys who have done, just as much as us or more or less, or it doesn't really matter. Trauma is trauma, and, to try to quantify it is foolish. Um, it really just takes one time getting shot at, or one time getting blown up, or one time seeing, you know, people with their face blown off or whatever it is. It doesn't take, all these compounded incidents to, feel a certain way. And I think that's part of the issue we see in the veteran community. I think a lot of guys try to quantify their experiences and their trauma, and I think that leads us down to a dark path. And really, the message should be that yes, the pain's there, yes, the trauma's there, but again, what actions are you taking to address those and maybe use it as fuel to be better?
For sure. And you see a lot of it nowadays. I mean, because we're in a completely different time zone. I mean, not time zone, but there's a completely different time period with the military right now. We're leaving this warfighter mentality. We're trying to maintain that, but nowadays you don't have, I don't know if you want to call it like there's levels of leadership where, okay, hey, you saw some crap, sucks, push through the next day. We're not facing that every single day. So it might be a little bit more of a learning curve going into these this newer generation of warfighters. And it's a fun thing to be able to see the two generations try to bridge this weird gap that we
Yeah,
have.
for sure. And
And we're all trying to
I
figure
think
it out
it's
as we
almost
go.
better because now we have a generation of warfighters teaching and bringing up the new guys, as opposed to when we came up, in the early 2000s. Like there were there weren't a ton. There were still so many guys that had been in the military 20 years, and by the time I got in, maybe there was a couple years of experience of combat, not the substantial amount, right? Guys like us who saw this thing happen for 20
Yeah.
years and served right in the thick of it. Um, that kind of prepares, or puts them in a position, I think, to be better leaders and more qualified leaders in terms of experience in combat, and being able to really speak to it and maybe shape some of the training and policies around developing soldiers, and how they go to, in the business world we say go to market, but how they go to war, and you know
Yeah. Yeah, well, for sure. And that's probably why we're seeing such good development when these guys get out. That's like, hey, there's resources for you, because when I got out, I had these issues and nobody was there. So I made these resources, and that's why I think it's amazing all the foundations. I mean, that's why we're doing this. That's why we're having these conversations, because people need to know about it. They need to know they exist.
Yeah, and I like the how you know, I guess operationalized or used trauma as a positive, and when people hear trauma, a lot of people will, quickly turn to the negative of, either, oh, poor Denny or poor Ben or Christian or, yeah, of course that's an excuse, but you use it as like, hey, I've already been to this place. Like the military is not going to be able to do anything, but only to improve me. And I think that mentality and that mindset enabled you to become a stronger leader throughout your duration of service. So I love the fact that you phrase it that way, and people need to understand that, you know, the trauma is trauma, but we can use that to our advantage. It's not a hindrance all the time. It's a choice,
Yeah,
but
and I
it
think
can be a
one way,
positive.
just another way of just thinking
For
differently
sure.
about it is, you know, every time something bad happens to us, whether it doesn't even have to be traumatic, right? Our response is to initially like, you know, the kind of the why me, and like, why am I dealing with this right now? Why, how come I'm struggling financially? How come I'm struggling in my relationships or whatever? Uh, but like a lot of people fail to realize that, like, you know, this is just part of the human experience. And you know, there's always somebody, you know, regardless of how bad you've had it, or you know how bad things are going to be, who knows, you know, there's somebody out there that's either been through the same or worse. And so something I've told myself even since I was a kid was, uh you know, why don't you deserve at least a little bit of pain and suffering? And you know, if somebody over here is going through it, you know, 100 times worse, you know, it's just again a part of the human experience, and you need to kind of absorb it in that fashion, because um, it's coming. The pain is coming, and we need to be able to just accept it as what it is, and again, turn it into a positive, because keeping it just buried down into the negative space is just, you're only hurting yourself. And I've certainly gone down that negative path before. Twice, there are two different times I can, you know, pinpoint them like right easily. Right when I got back from Afghanistan, I drank for 8 months straight. I was depressed. I had PTSD. I wasn't admitting to anybody that I had
No.
PTSD. I was telling myself I didn't have PTSD. Um, I went to the vet center finally because my ex-wife was like, "You need to talk to somebody. You need to get some help." So I did that, and I remember arguing with the therapist at the vet center and saying, "No, I don't have PTSD." And that next week, I came into her office and she handed me a 3-page document with probably 15 to 20 different criteria as to why I do have PTSD. So she documented it all out to me. We went through this document, and I tried to fight her on every single point. It didn't work. And so by the time that meeting was over, I was just defeated. I was like, she just kicked my ass with all these facts and medical terminology that made way too much sense that I didn't want to hear, but I submitted to it. And so she said, you know, here's all that criteria. Not only is this proof that you have it, you're going to take that document and you're going to submit it to the VA. And I did that, but I didn't do it for like another
Ugh.
year and a half, 2 years, because I was just still being so stubborn about it. And the reason is I used to have this,
Yeah.
you know, comparison problem where, you know, I just got off my deployment. I had served with SEALs for a year, worked very closely with them, became close friends with them. And I was thinking to myself, look, like some of these guys have been on 10, 12 deployments. I did one. I don't get to have PTSD. And that's what I told myself. Uh, but not realizing that, you know, one of my friends he's one of my close friends and mentors now. He's about 10, 12 years older than me, but you know, he said, Denny, like, we have PTSD too. And, you know, here I am thinking like these guys don't get it. And of course they do. But I just didn't think I deserved to get it, or was deserving or worthy or whatever word you want to use, because I didn't have as many deployments and I didn't, you know, work, you know, doing the same type of work that they did. And so I was making all these excuses. And yesterday I was talking to, I work for a company now called Sharp Performance, and they created an app. It's for police officers, firefighters, and they can go on there. They can get counseling for PTSD, couples counseling, fitness stuff. There's all these things on the app that serve as a resource to police officers and firefighters. That app's been tested within the special operations community, and the majority of our company is SEALs, Green Berets, MARSOC, all those kind of guys. And so I'm talking to one of the coaches yesterday, and I was kind of telling him my story and how I didn't believe I had PTSD, and you know, basically what I just told you guys. And he gave me this term that I absolutely loved, and it was called egomaniacal framework of competition. Where it is. I'm going to say it again. I'm going
It's
to
a
say
mouthful
it
right there.
again.
You're gonna have to
Egomaniacal
unpack that one.
framework of competition. And this guy's a SEAL, former SEAL. And so he says, you had that problem where you're so competitive as a person that, you're comparing yourself to Green Berets, you're comparing yourself to SEALs, you're comparing yourself to guys who perhaps just did more than you did. And when we get in that frame of mind, where does it end? Right? Where does it end? Right? There's always somebody bigger, badder, stronger, faster, smarter. Name the thing. You're never going to be all those things. And so, the lesson I've learned over the last 3-4 years is just, give myself some grace, enjoy my victories, and, uh, ask for help when I need it, and just be the best I can be. And, I found that changing that attitude and making that my approach has led to more victories and more success and better networking and friends like Ben. And, it's made me so much better. So just another point I wanted to throw out there because, yeah.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Like that, we all know, right? Comparison's a thief of joy, and it doesn't
Yeah.
stop just with the our professional side, right? And then that bleeds over into the personal side. And it's just a downward spiral as we continue to compare. And I agree, like there's always going to be people that are better. But if we can always strive through the best version of ourselves, um, then man, and the victories will come, like you're saying, and being able to identify those victories. And you're a powerful human being when you're able to identify all those small victories that you're doing. Now, is that the thin blue ridge that you were talking
So Thin
about?
Blue Rye,
Is that something
that's my
different?
buddy, my friend John, who his name's
Right.
John Dage. He's an Army vet. He was on the police force in the city that I'm from. He was on SWAT and all that stuff. He started that nonprofit back, geez, probably 10, 12 years ago, where they do a ride. I don't know exactly the loop that they do. It might be up and down the East Coast, but they do like a bike ride as a team to raise money for cancer awareness. And he's a 3-time cancer survivor. He's fighting it now. He just retired from the police force due to his cancer, getting it for the 4th time. But just such a good dude, and so I, you know, for free throw his logo around as much as I possibly can. I've donated a bunch of times. I host events. I go sponsor golf tournaments and different things for him. But such a cool event. He raises money
Nice.
for the families of police officers, law enforcement, veterans, all these families who have a loved one battling cancer, so that they can kind of focus on treatment as opposed to, am I going to be able to pay my mortgage this month? So he raises money for them and does a great job with that. So
Yeah,
That's
that's
amazing.
awesome.
I mean, especially nowadays that we're
yeah,
learning about all this stuff, with all the burn pits, all that goodness, Lejeune, Pearl Harbor, all these issues that are coming across. I
yeah,
mean, with cancer rapidly developing so fast. I mean, it's awesome that there's someone out there actually looking out.
And we're seeing the younger generation, like our age individuals, getting diagnosed with cancer. And is that either, we're being more proactive of getting, screened earlier, or we just may have more knowledge about it. But I think those are the types of nonprofits and individuals that uh, are needed to entice us stubborn individuals to go get your stuff checked
hmm
out, man. Like
Yeah.
catch it early, because if you catch it too late, like your time might be, limited on this earth. So I love that. I think that, coinciding with the app is a
yeah,
necessity. Like the digital era is here, right? And social media is everywhere, or access to information is, you know, endless. And being able to utilize that for positive, improvement of individuals, and having the platforms there, and then now being able to vocalize, like, hey, it's like, let's reduce this stigma. That's not like, it's okay to go ask for help. It's okay to use the platforms and the nonprofits that are out there. uh, so I love that's where, our generation, as young leaders, is paving the road for that.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, man, so we're going to get into a little bit of the forge and your leadership with Team Machine and whatnot. and your speaking engagements and all that, the amazing stuff you're doing, the experiences. I mean, you went to the
Yeah.
combine. Like, not too many people get to do that. That's awesome. That's so. I'm low key jealous of that a little bit. But I saw the pictures that I lived vicariously through you on social media. But yeah, man, talk to me about the experience on the Forge, and then what's
Yeah,
those
man,
doors
it's
opening
it's
up for
it's
you.
pretty cool. So I met Nick Lavery right around the time that I met you, and for the longest time I was just another guy who followed him on social media and um, thought his content was good. I thought his message was good, and he was a guest speaker at or he was the keynote speaker at the Brothers Keeper Veterans Foundation gala back last summer, and yeah, I it was funny because prior to that gala, I had 3 or 4 different people say, Denny, I know Nick Lavery. How about I introduce you to him? And each time that somebody said that, I was like, no, I, I, I don't want somebody, sending a text message or whatever. Yeah, here's Nick. Nice to meet you. It's like, I have nothing to say other than, hey, man, your content's cool. So I didn't want to take a meeting like that. I didn't want to just be like, yeah, man, cool. Nice to meet you. And, call it a day. So I kept saying no. I said no 3 different people, and ended up meeting him at the at the event. He found out I was from Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, like he was. Got to talking a little bit, kind of hit it off, and a week later he said, "Hey, let's hop on a call." So I still didn't know. I'm like, "What the hell does he want to talk to me for?" Um, so so I'm like, "All right, sure." So we hop on a call and we talk for about an hour and a half. He talked to me about PC and the speakers and all that we're doing there. Then he talked to me about the Forge and that online coaching community and all those things. And still, he's just at the whole time he's just talking about what he's doing. And I'm like, yeah, this is cool. And it was probably within like the last 10-15 minutes of it, he says, I'd love to bring you on if you're interested as a speaker for Precision Components, and I'd love to bring you on as a leadership subject matter expert for the Forge. And so, I flat out said, like, look, man, I had no intentions or interest whatsoever of doing any kind of online coaching or anything like that. But, I believed in the mission of what we were doing at the Forge. So I said yes. And yeah, I've been doing that for 7-8 months, and it's been awesome. It's been a good time. And the best part about it is just that entire team is just high performers, studs. You take the mental people like yourself, the physical people like Rebecca and Kate, and the other leadership guys like PJ and George, and there really is just a solid group of individuals that just delivers, and it's really cool to be a part of that. And to be a speaker for PC as well. Like you said, I had my first speaking event with them recently on March 1st. I spoke for Team USA flag football. I spoke for their high performance team, their coaches, their scouts, and I get to just talk about leadership and culture and share a little bit of my story. And the caveat to that was after I spoke that afternoon, I got to go to the NFL Combine with them, and just yeah, man, overall, just great experience, and to be a part of this has been awesome.
It had to have been amazing to just be recognized. I mean, have somebody full on recognize you outside and be like, "Hey, you're doing so good that I know we haven't even discussed this, but I want you to come join me."
Yeah, it
That must
was
have felt
just because
cloud nine.
yeah, I don't want to sound a certain way, but I was a huge fan of Nick's, from afar, just following his content and the stuff that he was putting out. And, for somebody like that to recognize you as an asset and, kind of put faith in your ability and see like kind of the potential in you, that meant a lot to me. And it was it was special. It really was. It was really, really cool. And so now to just be involved with this and with Nick, with Ben, and some of these other people that I just think are incredible and incredibly talented. It's awesome.
Yeah, I like his vision. And I like where, Nick started. And
Yeah,
Nick and I have gone way back. We served together, and just seeing, the progress and the consistency of his message and his drive to succeed and to help others. Now, let's go a little bit more into like the Forge, because initially when we started the Forge, or when Nick started and I came on and you came on and all these other individuals, um, you know, there's some talk or some thought of like, hey, this is like a veteran, because there's a lot of military or a lot of veterans on this platform.
right.
Is it only strictly for veterans? And the answer is no. So we go a little bit more deep into like who would benefit from the Forge, right? Like, and what do you see? What would be a good starting spot for
Yeah,
someone to hop on that website? Because there's a plethora of knowledge, um,
yeah,
in a good way, but also sometimes can be overwhelming.
So yeah, like, let's kind of go over like what the Forge is in general, just so
Yeah.
yeah.
anybody who kind of really
Yeah,
doesn't
so the
know,
Forge, it's
like
an
hearing the
online
name for the
community
first
made
time,
up
if we
of
can.
subject matter experts from a variety of fields, like leadership, like myself, the mental domain, like Ben. We have people in finance and fitness and nutrition. So I think they've just created a spiritual domain. So there's all these different domains where if you go into the Forge and say you're in business and you want to learn how to be a better team leader in business or a sales leader or whatever it is, you'd go into maybe my domain and you see myself, you see a handful of subject matter experts in leadership, the content that we post and things of that nature, and kind of seek out coaching for that. Um, and same thing with the mental domain with Ben and the
That's
fitness with
awesome.
Rebecca and all these other people. So it's pretty cool. And it's not just, limited to the veteran community. It really is for anyone. It can be as simple as, like I said, you want to be a better sales leader, you want to be a better husband, you want to, maybe you're struggling with, confidence issues or depression. We have all these different things in these different domains and subject matter experts where it really is for anyone. And it's not just like, hey, I'm having issues with these things, let me join. It's, I want to maintain the skill sets that I have, and if not, build off of those. And the Forge is great for that.
Nice. Now, what about so sitting in front of, the USA flag football team? What is kind of your, you said leadership and character, but what, for the viewers, what can, if they're like, man, Denny seems like someone who's, you know, has done a lot and knows a lot of powerful things and is employing those in his daily life. What can people, if they're like, hey, I want Denny, what would they, expect, or what would you provide someone from,
Yeah.
your speaking
So
engagements or your
typically, my
content or
speaking
whatnot?
engagements start with me sharing my story. So I talk about how I grew up with, not knowing my father, my mom dying from AIDS, growing up in and out of foster care. I talk about these things, and I make people understand that they're not alone in their pain and in their experiences, and some of the things like the quotes you read earlier, I say those in my engagements as well. I let people know that they're not alone, and I let them know that they can use their pain as fuel to be better. Um, I go into different leadership principles like owning, all of your outcomes, whether the team succeeds or fails. If you're the leader, it's on you. I go into things like discipline. I talk about the importance of that and delayed gratification and trusting in the process that you create for yourself. Um, so there's a lot of different things that I speak on. And flag football in particular was, their biggest objective was building the culture because they're so new. So they wanted to make sure that they were building a culture that was there to stay, that was competitive, but also, the foundation of that is something I told them was trust. And the best example I used was, why do soldiers trust each other so much, right? It's because when we're overseas, when we're doing the job, uh, we know that there's somebody that has our back and that's fighting for us, playing for us. And I tried to use the analogy of us as athletes, just like they're athletes, right? When we practice or when we're training, it's practice. When we're overseas, that's the game. And Afghanistan, Iraq, pick the venue or pick the country. That's the arena, and we're there to show up. We're there to do a job, and in order to solidify your culture, everybody needs to show up and do exactly what they're supposed to do because you're all handpicked and hand selected to perform at a high level, and that's the expectation.
I love that. Love that. That's good.
Yeah.
So that kind of, I like the fact that you draw those analogies, and I think there's a lot of analogies and parallels between veterans in the business world or in corporate America. We're as veterans, or when we were on active status, we were constantly required to produce, and I think at any level of in a business, either at the bottom or the top, you are required to produce as well. So I like the fact that you're using your past to draw those analogies, because we as veterans, we bring a different perspective, but we're just the same of the determination, the leadership style, and the ability to produce when we need to, and we need to practice, and as everybody needs to practice, whether or not you're in sports, business, in the academia world, you have to practice, get those reps in to produce when it's
Absolutely.
game time.
Couldn't say it any better. Couldn't even really elaborate on that. That's just, that is what it is. I mean, we talk about it in the Forge. Nick does sometimes. It's just putting in the reps and doing the work. And I say often, people are afraid to take action, right? And that's the most important step. If you have a goal, you have an objective, just start moving. I almost didn't do my podcast. I almost didn't do certain things. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't have this network. I wouldn't know who Ben is. I wouldn't be doing podcasts. I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff. And I wasn't expecting to, if I'm being honest. But I took action, started my podcast, started putting myself out there without knowing what the end state it was. And I still don't know what it is. But here I am. I have all these opportunities now presenting themselves by simply taking action, as opposed to staying stagnant and, still where I would just still be doing the same old shit. And, that wouldn't be moving me any more closer to where I want to be. But now, every single day, I'm inching closer to exactly where I want to be. And it's simply by taking action. And, like now, again, just by taking action, I'm an SME in leadership in the Forge. I'm an engagement speaker with Precision Components. I have a book coming out this year. Like all this shit that I wasn't even thinking about a year ago. Wasn't even thinking about it. And so, if you have a goal, just start moving towards it and pivot and make adjustments accordingly.
For sure. I think, and I think that's, to me, what I've really seen is a lot of veterans coming out. I mean, I'm talking E1, E2, all the way up to 06. I mean, I don't know why the military has such a entrepreneurial or creative desire. I mean, almost every veteran that I've met, you meet a couple, they're like, oh, I don't want to do a single thing with my life after. But most guys, they want to create something. And they've been directed so much saying that, hey, you're great, you're doing good, but there's no direction. And so some of these guys that get out and they have all these ideas, but they don't move. They don't move forward with them. They just sit and it's like, well, this is a cool thought, but they have no idea how to go about doing it, or they just decide not to go do it. There's no addition. There's nobody telling them to go do it, so they're not going to go do it. So building that drive and building that passion, or just building that tenacity to actually build up and go do it is beyond important. That's why it's amazing that you have such a good leadership principle going and
Yeah,
teaching
and
these
I think a
guys
lot
to
of
actually
times too, the
buckle
reason
up.
that people don't take action is confidence. And what if I fail, and what if people see me fail, and like, here I am putting myself out on social media, and what if I only get 2 likes, or what if I don't get any, or people get in their head about engagement and what other people think and all this stuff. And that's one thing I told myself when I decided to tell my story and put myself out there and start sharing on social media and all this stuff. It was, I don't care what people think. And I'm just going to do what I need to do, what I think I need to do, you know, within my moral compass, within the things that I think are important that I want out of life. And I don't care what anybody thinks. And I'll make adjustments, I'll pivot. And if I fail, you know what? Guess what? So what? I failed. But at least I tried. And at least I tried, and I can,
Yeah, that's part of life.
pivot and try something else if it doesn't work out. But nobody's going to be able to look at me and say, yeah, he didn't give everything he had to trying to do what he was trying to do. And
Yeah, that's the thing that we do is we have those ideas, but taking that first step forward, right, is always the hardest step. And I love the fact of pivot and failure. We have to always pivot. Like we walk through that door, take that step forward. It's a step forward, but it probably is not the right, direction. It's still movement, and that's what progress is. Uh, but then pivoting and knowing that, okay, I tried this didn't work. Now let me try something else. That's what you continue. That's where you gain momentum. Um, and it's the hardest step is just initially taking that forward. And then what? So how long has be the standard been on?
13 months.
When did you start that? A couple years ago?
Almost 14 months. On April
Ooh,
6th, it'll be
okay.
Nice.
14 months ago we started.
Almost.
We had our first episode.
I say,
Okay.
how soon after you got out did you realize like, hey, this
Out
is
of the
kind of the
military?
direction I want to start going with my life? This is a
I've
this
taken a couple of
is
different paths since then.
mhm.
I mean, I got out in 2013, so I've been in software. So after I got out, I went back to school and finished my degree, and then after that, I've been in the software space now for about a decade. So I've been selling software for. I worked for Oracle for 6.5 years. I worked for Workday, so a couple of Fortune 100 companies where I really learned to sell and really learned the business world and the software space. And
Nice.
now I'm still in that space, but now I'm with a much smaller company, which I love. But yes, and then it was just recently where, like, again, 14 months ago, 15 months ago, I was like, I'm going to start sharing my story, but I didn't really know how I wanted to do that. I thought about writing a book. I thought about a variety of different things and ways to do that. But I decided to do it through a podcast and sharing my story and doing it through conversation as opposed to just me throwing it out there for people to absorb.
Definitely, like, you spend too much time with the SEALs like that. I
Yeah,
have to write a book came out from you from spending the time with the SEALs. Like,
dude.
it's like, yep. Oh wait, I got out. Have to find a. I think when they're doing
I,
their separation briefing,
Dude,
they
I
bring
love
out
my SEAL
publishers
friends and
and
I
then
joke around with
instruct
them.
each
It's
guy.
like, and
That's
if I
good.
have to read one more time about what it's like to go through buds, I'm gonna fucking lose my mind. Like, dude, I get
I,
it.
th-
You
I
you
think we
ran
all
through
know
water,
at this
you rolled
point.
around in the beach, and then you had to lift up logs. I got it. Get done. Like now, and this is the thing that drives me nuts about the book thing. Now
Can't
tell
forget
me
the
why
logs.
it's unique. Tell
Can't.
me why you're unique, right? We get it. You're a SEAL. You're a leader. You're whatever.
Oh yeah.
And I hate that shit. I mean, and it's not a knock on anybody, but I want to know what's unique about you because I'll say this to anybody. I don't give a shit what color your hat was in the
Yeah.
military. I don't care if you had a trident on your chest. I don't give a fuck. Like, it's not enough to impress me. I want to know who you are as a person and like, I want to know what's unique about you. Right. And yes, and not to take away
Yeah.
from any of that, being a Green Beret and
Yeah.
earning that and then earning that trident, like, you're in a very small class of special operators, and there's something to be said about that. So I'm not trying to like be a dick, but I want to know about you as a person. That's what I want to know, right? I don't want to hear about what it's like to go through Budge for the 100th time,
Yeah.
and that's kind of
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's a necessity, right? is especially the veterans after we get out is, hey, we are a veteran. We are no longer associated with that. Yeah, like the experience is the experience, and yeah, it molds us to who we are. But deep down inside, we're still humans, and we still have that specific thing that makes us unique. Yeah, man. So I think this is a perfect segue into discussing your book. And I asked if there's a chapter in your book that you're lifting logs in.
Nope, nope, definitely not. Um,
Love it.
no,
But yeah, tell
no,
us
no
about that. I think
logs,
that's
no
awesome. I
beach,
love
no
the fact
water.
that you had an aspiration 15 months ago. Hey, I want to start this podcast. I want to have this, write a book. Um, and the duration of, that's a long time to sit on an idea and not lose that momentum. So I love the fact that, it was on your
Yeah.
to-do list, a goal list, and you eventually made it happen. So let the audience and viewers know kind of what's your book about.
Yeah, man. So I appreciate that. I started writing it um, before I even started the podcast. I just started jotting down notes. I think I had like 6 pages. I basically spent the last year or so just writing everything when I had time and this and that. And, again, another cool thing that Nick did for me was he hooked me up with his publishing consulting team. And, like him, I'm going to self
Yeah.
publish. Hopefully on Veterans Day this year is the goal. Just submitted my manuscript and synopsis and all that stuff. But yeah, man, my book is basically a memoir. I talk about my life experiences, and that includes my childhood from again how I grew up, physical abuse, and my mom, and not having a father, all the way to detailed experiences in Afghanistan, where I talk about leadership and just from my own perspective, and then yeah, man, it's all about my experiences, and I talk a lot about in the book of what we just said, and that's taking action and the importance of taking action in the face of adversity, and understanding that you control your next move, and that's kind of the whole premise of the book is the importance of action as opposed to remaining stagnant, and so that's what I talk a lot about is are those things, and I talk about not just what I grew up with and experienced in the military, but what I do now. And, all my mistakes are in the book, and all my life's lessons are in the book. And I can't think of a single
Yeah,
thing that,
it's good. You got to be
embarrasses the
vulnerable.
hell out of me that's not in there. I put it all in there. Yeah, man, that's what it is. That's where people relate. And,
That's to be wild to
like it or
know
love
that,
it,
hey,
that you're
I'm
going to
airing
read
out my
everything
dirty
about me.
laundry. It's I mean, it's for the world to see. That's got to be kind of a wild step, honestly.
it's it goes to that confidence and not really caring what people think, because guess what, my mistakes and my demons and
Yep.
my my shit, as I call it, it's out there. Just because yours isn't out there doesn't mean you don't have it. You can pretend you don't, that's fine, and you don't have to share it. You're not obligated. I respect that. But
Well, yeah, and you're on social
judge me if
media
you
too, so
want,
you
but
know that
you're a
people can
fucking
just
liar, right?
they shit post comments every time just to rally you up. So, I mean, you've been on social media for a minute. Book's gonna be
Mhm.
no issue when it comes to that.
That's what I mean. Like there isn't. I can't think of anything in the book that I haven't really discussed publicly. There's some things I'm sure, but for the most part, like the big things are out there. So it's. Uh, but I mean, there's
That's
plenty
good. I
that's
like that.
not
And then
too.
I
So,
love
but
I think it's
nothing earth shattering. I don't
pretty
think.
awesome that it's you're dropping it on Veterans Day. I think that's like the symbology. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, that's. I guess we can't fully control like the exact date it comes out, but that's the goal for the team, myself and the publishing team, or consulting team rather, um, is to get it out on Veterans Day. That was my idea. I was
Okay.
because I read somewhere that you typically want to publish a book
It
on
was
Stars
a
meant to
align.
be.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
and Veterans Day
Stars
just happens to be
align.
on a Tuesday, so I thought that was cool.
Yeah, man. So
Yeah,
why don't you tell us
that's it, man.
how people can kind of keep in contact with you and reach out to you, whether it's not, on socials or, if they want to be on your podcast or just to connect with you. What's the multiple different ways they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm most active on Instagram. So Denny Giamazzo is my handle there, and then Be the Standard Podcast for the podcast page. And anybody interested in being a guest can just hit me up there directly. I run both pages, so I'll respond. I have a decent presence on LinkedIn, so you can just find me, Denny Giamazzo, there. And I'm on Twitter, kinda, TikTok, at Be the Standard Podcast a little bit. I'm
You
not
got to do
big
the
on either
TikTok.
of those,
You got to
but
do it.
they're a necessary evil, so I use them. Um, oh, geez, it's funny, man. I almost didn't do the TikTok
As long
thing
as
because
you're
I
not
was like,
dancing
man,
on
if I
it, I
create a
mean,
TikTok, I'm gonna feel
no.
like a high school girl. But yeah, no, I don't do any of that. But it was funny because then I saw like some of my friends on there who like are in the same
Yeah.
space and they have
Yeah, I
it. So I
think
was like, fine, I'll make
from just
a
what
TikTok. So I
I've
did.
seen and followed is uh, a lot of when I see your posts, it's a mixture. It's a hybrid of resilience, determination, leadership, but also like the authenticity, kind of like in your face, like, hey, this is it. Like you have a choice to do A, you have a choice to do B. It's your choice. Pick your own path, right? Pick your own adventure. And I really like that about what you post and your consistency of, you know, this is me. I'm authentic, and this is who I am. Um, and if you can learn from it, great. If not, great, fine. Move on. But yeah, I enjoy following all your endeavors on there, and it's powerful. It's motivational, man. So shout out to you on that.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that, and that's kind of the goal here. That's it, and that's why I said what I said about SEALs writing books. It's like I want to know what's authentic. And so I do my best to just make my stuff authentic, and the words are mine, and I don't steal a single quote or post from anybody. Um, it's all what I come up with in
Good,
my
good.
head.
So what's the
So
next? What's next
I think that's
steps?
important,
What's I know the book's coming out, but what's the next pivot you're gonna make?
dude. Next is
I love it.
see. This is what's cool about just taking action. I don't know. I have a couple speaking engagements with PC on the books coming up in the spring and the summer, so I'll be doing those, and then you know hopefully start promoting the book sometime by the end of the summer, fall, and then drop it in November. And so those are my two big initiatives: is just as many speaking events as I can do, and then um, drop the book. And again, my day job is still software sales. I love doing
Yeah, I
it,
like
Good.
that.
and
I like
I'll
that
be
how
working my
you
ass off with that too. So
you
I'm
say you
busy.
have a consistent, right? And then you're able to pursue your goals while staying consistent, being able to be financially stable, and whatnot. So I think that your approach to that is yes, busy, super busy. However, it keeps you young. Like if we're not moving, we're static. Like
Dude, it's cool too because the company I work for now, the guy who recruited
okay,
me actually worked with Nick in fifth group or seventh group as well. He was a captain, and so he saw my relationship with Nick, and that's how I ended up getting
hmm
recruited to the company. So again, these relationships, like, I mean, I probably owe Nick like $1 million already with the leadership, the speaking. Now this guy's recruiting me for this job, and like
yeah,
he resets me up with his publisher. It's like it's that just creating a network of solid dudes has been so beneficial, and it wouldn't have happened without just taking action. And I'll hammer that point till I die because it's so important. It's the most
yeah. I think
important.
that's
Is just to be moving
the
and doing
most
something.
impactful thing to especially veterans is take that action. We're used to action. We're used to doing things a structured
Mm,
environment, and then just because we're not wearing that uniform
fact.
doesn't mean that we've lost all that. So I love the phrase of take action. That's it. Like quick, down and dirty. Like do it. Take that step forward, and then figure it out as you go. But that first step forward is a necessity. Yeah, man. Well, it was a pleasure,
Yeah,
Danny. It
definitely.
always is. I know we'll
Absolutely.
stay in touch, and obviously, but I love the fact that you were able to come on and meet Christian and next
Yeah.
time you're in Nashville, or permanently, maybe. I don't know. Uh, moving
But hey, it could happen, man. It
in
could
about
happen.
4 days.
When are you moving?
So I'll be on, but it's only 2 hours south of Nashville.
Oh,
But a
geez.
lot of
Okay,
stuff
so
is in
it's okay.
Nashville, and I know last time you went, we hung out, we did a little cold therapy, which is always a pleasure. Um, but yeah, I think wherever you go, wherever you end
That
up,
was
you stay
awesome.
there, you go wherever. You can continue to do great things and impact lives, and that's at the end of the day, that's what we're here for.
And I was thinking of this one thought I want to start trying to implement. I think it'd be a
Yes,
fun
sir.
idea.
Absolutely.
Tell us like one of your most fond memories from being in. I'm talking like from basic all the way up to day getting out. What's like the kicker that you're like,
Oh,
yep,
geez.
that's a like when you just drink just enough. You're like, hey guys, remember, I want to know this one time.
Oh man, that's a good question. Geez, I feel like there's so many, but yeah, man, just having fun with the guys was always my favorite. I remember, I'll tell you, like we were doing a field training exercise in the summer, and we stayed out in the woods, and I think we were out in the woods for like 12 days straight, no showers, anything like that. And at this time, I still had hair, and not a lot. I was losing it. I was losing it, but I decided right in the middle of the woods, I was like, my buddy had some clippers. I was like, give me those things. I'm gonna shave my head. And so we decided that we
Yeah.
had a platoon sergeant that had like he kept like the hair on the sides and in the back. So we decided to like play a joke on him. And this guy's an ex like ranger and shit, like kind of a no bullshit kind of guy. And we shaved like the top of my head off the crown and left the sides and the back. And so I went up and I had my hat on, and I go up next to him and I'm like, hey, can I get a picture with you? He's like, yeah, of course. So I take my hat off right when I do it and like got a picture with him with my head shaved, looked like an idiot. Um, and then
Yeah, let's say
so this is in the middle
you're
of
gonna
the
get
woods or
smoked after
whatever,
that
and
one.
he made me
It's
do
a
I don't know how many
guarantee.
push-ups, but he. Oh yeah, yeah. I don't.
Ah.
Oh, yeah.
And the cadence when I was pushing was that bald is sexy. So, but yeah, I just remember being in the middle of the woods, being like, you know what, I'm sick of having
That's
hair. And I
such a
shaved my head in the
FTX
middle of
thing.
the
It's like
woods
you sit out in
and
the woods too long. You're just like, you know
never
what?
had hair again.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, yeah. Your uniform's starting to smell and it's
Thank you
like
so much for
hard.
sharing
And,
that.
yeah, that was great.
That's those FTXs will get you. I mean, those are they really are.
I figured
No,
like
that's
on
perfect.
social media
That's
and stuff,
great.
I share enough of
That
this
was
good
great.
Do you
stuff. Let
still
me
have that
share like a
picture?
funny story.
If you find it, we'll put
You know
that.
what?
We'll
It's
put that as
probably
our
on Facebook somewhere.
the profile,
Uh,
the picture of
it,
this episode.
let me see if I can find it.
I have to.
Uh,
Yeah, that'll
That'd
be
be
good.
great. I'd love
I
to
feel
see
like somebody has to have it. So let me see if
it.
I can find it. I don't
Well,
have
good.
Facebook anymore. That's the
Awesome.
thing.
Well, yeah,
But
man, I
that's
really
where it was
appreciate
for a long
taking the
time.
time out of your day, your busy schedule, but yeah, it means the
Truly, thank
world.
you. Yeah.